The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Deakin.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. Today's condolence is not one up until Kevin's untimely death, was one that I thought I would ever be giving in this place to my very close friend, confidant and ally in Kevin Andrews. Kevin, as others have indicated, lived an extraordinarily consequential life. And in the Parliament House, we often judge people's impact on the titles they've held, the duration that they've been here, as quick markers of how consequential somebody has been. I think with Kevin, even though he did leave Parliament as the father of the House, he was the member for Menzies for over 30 years. He was a minister in the Howard and Abbott governments, played a huge role, even from the backbench, initially in the Howard government, and at the end of his parliamentary career, he would tick the boxes of being a huge figure, not just for the Liberal Party, but a huge political figure in this country by any of those metrics. But they're not the reasons why he was a huge figure. Kevin was a giant of Australian politics because I think for many of us, his approach, his values were a reflection of Australia at its best and a reflection of a time when, as others have said, politics wasn't a blood sport. Politics wasn't about playing the man, it was about playing the ball. Politics was about was a vocation, not a career. It was a vocation, not a career pathway. So I think for many of us in the Parliament, Kevin embodied those best instincts of what many of us imagine a parliamentarian to be. Kevin took on difficult fights. Kevin stood up for important causes. From my perspective, he stood up for causes in which I wholeheartedly agreed with. Kevin's fundamental view that strong nations, strong states, strong communities are built on the foundation of strong and healthy families, I think is the most significant touchstone of his political ethos, and one in which I entirely agreed with. His defence of life at times when it was unpopular, at times when it was difficult, but his abiding view on the sanctity of life, I think, is a thread throughout his career. I remember being a humble branch member in his electorate in my, must have been probably early 20s, handing out how to vote cards and in the thick of the debate around euthanasia. And whilst those of us who were supporting Kevin couldn't have been prouder of him, I witnessed firsthand the ferocious attacks that he faced, the targeted and coordinated attacks that he faced at that time when he was standing up for the primacy and the importance of palliative care and the sanctity of human life. That was a fight that not many backbenchers would take on, but was a fight that Kevin took on with relish and succeeded. May not have succeeded for all time, but he succeeded at that time and in that moment. Kevin obviously took that vein of thinking throughout his political career. As I said, being a minister in two governments is quite an extraordinary thing and is a testament to his capacity, not just his values. I think a lot of us instinctively reflect on Kevin's values, the fact he was tethered to firm values, the fact that I think one of the dirtiest words in politics today, pragmatism, which often is shortcut for selling out your values for what is politically expedient at the time. Kevin took on those difficult fights, even at personal cost to himself, even when the zeitgeist was against him. But even though we focus on his values, I think it's also important to focus on his ability, his capacity. And in every portfolio he had, I suspect, without knowing firsthand, I suspect they were given to him because there were difficult challenges in those portfolios, and Kevin, as a steady hand and a safe pair of hands, was given those difficult portfolios at difficult times because of his capacity. And whether it's his time in defence, whether it's his time in industrial relations, whether it's his time in social services or in aged care, no one can suggest that Kevin was given an armchair ride in the portfolios that he was offered by Prime Ministers Howard and Abbott. And for him to take those on, and in most cases, not only succeed substantively, which is the most important thing, but also often succeed politically, I think is testament to his capacity for good policy, his hard work, but also his capacity in the political sphere, which in the end he was a part of. I, as I alluded to at the beginning, was very close to Kevin as a confidant, as a very close ally. He supported me when I was a candidate in the pre-selection for Deakin back in 2012, and our very close mutual friend, the late Sandra Mercer-Moore, who was one of the trio that many would refer to. It is a very sobering moment when I think back to two of my closest allies and confidants, both now having passed. But I do know that Kevin and Sandra will be catching up on all things politics in a better place now. And the one thing I think that is of some comfort to Margie and Kevin's wonderful family is the legacy that Kevin leaves behind. And importantly, Kevin lived what he preached. Everyone in this chamber, and I'm as guilty of this as many, they say one thing publicly and sometimes do a little bit differently themselves privately or when there aren't cameras on. Kevin was a remarkable man in that what he preached, he practiced. Kevin, as a staunch advocate of marriage and the importance of marriage as an institution, the foundational institution to support strong families, which in turn support strong communities and strong states and strong nations, he lived that with Margie, his wonderful wife, who was by his side throughout his political career and before and after. Kevin, I think, is the greatest mark of success during his time in Parliament, raised a wonderful family and had a marriage that was as strong at the end of his political career as it was at the beginning. I think that is the greatest mark of success that any of us can hope for. And Kevin practiced what he preached. It's also been remarked just how courteous Kevin always was. Kevin was under attack a lot. Being a Conservative Liberal is not particularly popular with large swathes of the media or our political opponents. But Kevin, I think, had something I wish I had a bit more of. Kevin had this unflappable ability to just remain courteous with everybody, no matter what the attacks were. And I think that speaks to a character trait, again, that I think we could all aspire to have a bit more of, but I think has come through in the condolence motions over the last few days. So, an extraordinarily consequential life, a giant of Australian politics, a giant of the Liberal Party, a giant of the Victorian Liberal Party, who didn't necessarily treat him with the respect he should have been treated at all times. But Kevin never spat the dummy. He was a Liberal through and through, and he remained true to our values and our cause, even at times of disappointment, which again speaks, I think, to his character. So to Margie and their wonderful family, I just say, at this extraordinarily difficult time, I hope you are drawing comfort from the fact that Kevin was an extraordinary man with an extraordinary legacy, and most importantly, helped countless people throughout Australia and in his local community, which I think is probably the greatest legacy that anyone can leave behind. May he rest in peace.